Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Good morning, I'm Karl Fitzpatrick and welcome to Business Matters. Well, Colum Murphy from Kehoe Associates has regularly provided us with his insights into the residential and commercial property market across County Wexford. Colum joins me now to share his assessment of the local property market in 2019 and what we can expect for the year ahead. So, Colum, how did the property market across County Wexford perform last year?
Thank you, Karl. The property market performed very well in County Wexford in 2019. Plenty of activity across all the sectors, plenty of activity in new homes and second-hand residential and commercial also. So, yeah, it's been a very busy year. So looking at the property price register, we look back at 2019 and there were about 10% more houses sold in 2019 compared with the previous year.
Did we see an increase in selling prices in 2019 across the county?
Yes, we have. A slight bit of a tailing off towards the end of the year, but on average, yes, we're seeing about 6 or 7% increase in property values for the year of 2019. In Wexford now at the moment, you're looking at an average price of around €200,000, which is compared to the national average of house price of €250,000.
The last time you joined me on the show, there was an undersupply of new houses coming onto the market. Are we meeting the demand for new houses at this stage?
Yeah, it's difficult to say whether we're actually meeting the demand, but there's certainly a choice out there now for buyers. I believe the demand is increasing, and you can see in County Wexford the sale of new homes compared to the volume of second-hand has increased by 39% in 2019, albeit from a low base, yes, but now you find that new homes now are selling at a level that's enticing builders back into the market. And yeah, it's positive really, and all the signs are positive. You've almost like a two-tier market, Karl, where you've got second-hand residential. You might have a second-hand ex-rental 3-bed semi-detached house selling for €170,000 or €175,000, and then the equivalent in an A-rated brand new house maybe selling for €225,000 or €235,000. So a huge differential between the new and second-hand.
Why so?
Simply down to the A rating. So, in order to have these energy efficient A-rated homes, they have much more advanced heating system, higher levels of insulation, and they're future-proofed in many ways. So a lot of the running costs of a house. So if you buy a house that was built in 1990, you're going to say, well, I'm going to spend €2,000 per annum here on oil. Whereas if you buy something that was built in 2020 with an air-to-water heating system or geothermal, and a lot of those costs for heating the house for the next 20 or 25 years are already built in and paid for by the developer from the start.
And to look at who's buying in the local market, how much of the market is made up of first-time buyers, Colum?
I only have evidence from our own office. It's difficult to pinpoint the percentage of first-time buyers. I would say about 1 in 5 transactions are to first-time buyers at the moment. When I look across the sales of County Wexford, about 2/3 of all house sales are being purchased in County Wexford. This kind of stands across all the four main towns. About 2/3 of those buyers are owner-occupiers, and the remaining 1/3 is a combination of holiday home purchasers and investors purchasing a buy-to-rent.
Now, of course, there are challenges facing the new development sector.
One of the greatest challenges for the new home sector at the moment is the national housing strategy with a particular focus on densification. So they're trying to increase the density in all new developments going forward. So the department has set out that a new development must have a minimum density of 35 residential units per hectare, the equivalent of about 15 per acre. Now, so what we're seeing then from builders and developers from their perspective is, in order to get to qualify and to conform with this new strategy, well, they need to include apartments within the development. So the idea of a new development, 3, 4, 5 houses per acre, is no longer possible. And if it's appealed to on board from all or for any reason, it's most likely it'll be refused. And there are quite a number of sites out there at the moment with full planning and being developed and ready to go and that sort of thing. But I believe as time moves on, you'll find a reduction in the number of new house starts, simply and solely down to this 35 per hectare rule, which is fine really for Dublin, North Wicklow and whatever in Kildare, but it's applying a national rule to a provincial town, which to me doesn't make economic sense on the ground.
Now, high density, I would have thought, would have been to the benefit of developers.
You think that, but it's counterintuitive because the developer doesn't necessarily want to build apartments because the market doesn't necessarily want to buy apartments. And in Wexford, in order for a builder to build an apartment and have a fair day's pay from it, it's probably going to need to have a selling price of excess 200,000, and that's feasibly, it's just not there. Another thing also with apartments that we have seen down through the years, when a developer or builder builds a block of apartments, he has to build the entire block and finish every apartment before he gets paid for one. So before he hands over any, it all has to be done, communal areas, lifts, everything finished before he can close out on one sale. So it's a real cash flow challenge compared to building 3-bed semis where you can sell 4, 5, 6 at a time.
And is there a demand for apartments when it comes to social housing?
Yeah, there probably is. But you're asking the local authorities or the housing bodies to purchase apartments at a price that's the equivalent of them purchasing a 3-bed semi-detached house. So it's much more attractive for them to purchase houses than apartments.
And how much variation in price is there between the 4 key towns in the county?
Yeah, so I've looked at those numbers. Keep a close eye on that. So if I look at the property price register and they break it down into the 4 areas based on your air code, really. So you look at Wexford, which is Y35 air code. You're looking at an average house price of, these are properties not asking price. These are sold now in County Wexford in 2019. So average then is 175,000 is the average transaction in Wexford town and that general area. Comparing that then to Gorey, which is slightly higher. Gorey is 195, so 195,000. And Escorthy, slightly less than Wexford, 161,000. And then New Ross then at 140,000 as the average.
And when you look at the demand for properties in rural locations versus that within towns, how does that split operate?
I've seen certainly the town properties and properties in urban settings been much more attractive in the last 5 to 10 years for a number of different reasons. I think that people, it's very attractive if they can revert to having one car. Public transport is an issue as well. Some of the trickier properties that we have found to sell are properties that are in County Wexford that are rural but not coastal. So some of those inner parishes and communities, and without naming any specific ones, but those can be certainly, as a buyer, you would get much better value for money in those central areas in the county at this minute in time.
On property prices of residential properties in County Wexford for 2020, do you expect them to increase, and if so, by how much, Colum?
I see in all the indicators are positive for 2020. You're looking even this week now. You have Davies coming out with revising their forecast for the GDP upwards to 5.5%. I believe that the house prices in County Wexford in 2020 will rise between 5 and 7% for this year.
If any of our listeners are considering purchasing a residential property in Wexford this year, what advice do you have for them?
You look at the most recent daft.ie rental figures in County Wexford. So the average rent in County Wexford, average residential rent stands at €863 per month. That's compared nationally to just over 1,400. That's the highest that has been recorded. So it's costing on average to rent a house in Wexford €863. If you take a mortgage of 180,000 over 25 years, that's less than 800 per month. So we're now entering a phase where it is cheaper to purchase and pay a mortgage than rent. Yes, and I know that'd be my message really, that it's a good time to purchase in County Wexford at this minute in time. I think there's excellent value for money out there, and I'd be very optimistic of the year ahead.
And turning our attention to the commercial property market, what type of commercial properties are in demand in Wexford at present?
In Wexford at the moment, my insight would show that there is a shortage of good quality office accommodation, and there's also a shortage of good quality industrial property. So both of those are in short supply, and that's principally down to, I'd imagine, the office rent per square foot and the industrial rent per square foot isn't at a level to entice private developers in to supply this to the market.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Colum Murphy from Kehoe Associates, and I would like to thank Colum for sharing his valuable insights into the property market with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
South